Nice. So how many dogs do you
Very
have
nice.
right now?
I only have three at the moment. Two of my seniors passed away this year,
Gotcha.
and yeah, I haven't gotten any new ones yet. So just three, but we have nine cats at the moment. So
All right.
so you're sending this out live?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I have a feeling that the quality of the recording is going to be better, but I'm still gonna, you know, go live at the same time. Because, people like, it's fun if they tune in at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's see. So I do have
Did you
some.
want me to record it on this end as well?
You know what? You can go ahead and do that too, just in case.
Recording in progress.
Ready?
Okay. So, Lauren Whiteman. I'm a huge fan, first of all, because I've been on a journey of like finding what's the best diet and what's the best approach to healing. And right before you, I ended up on Dr. Sebi. And so,
Okay.
as I was just going on, this whole alkaline electric diet, somewhat mixing and with cooked foods and all this kind of stuff, something felt off, especially when I look at some of the big creators like Yaki Awaken and stuff, like the modern creators right now, doing all these bitters and doing all these things, like Dr. Morse, for instance. So then I come across you and I come across, natural hygiene. And I learn about herbs and how they're, not really doing what we think they're doing and all these kinds of things. So that's kind of how I was led to you. Could you maybe start off by talking about that a little bit, about how the different people in the space and how they're, selling the herbs and what that's really doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of people within like the raw food community, and everybody kind of seems to have their own little, uh, variations that they do. Like some people really promote juicing heavily, or promoting the herbs, or detox cleanses, and all of these type of programs. And so, like you, I came into healing through Dr. Morris and through his program where he sells the herbs, and I felt the same thing. I was like, I felt very strongly that the diet portion of it was correct, but then the herbs just, it never sat well with me, and it was just just didn't feel good when I took them. And so that kind of just continued my learning journey, and I just continued to explore, eventually finding natural hygiene. But in terms of the herbs, so the one principle that we always have to remember is that the body takes all action. So when we eat an apple, we bite the apple, we chew the apple, we swallow the apple, our stomach digests the apple, it moves through our digestive tract, a little bacteria in our digestive tract breaks down the apple into its usable components. Every step of the way, it is the body taking the action against the material, the food. So like even the idea where we say like food is medicine, like that even is really a false concept,
Yes.
because medicine is by definition a poison. So
Aha.
we don't want our food to be medicine. We want our food to be the building blocks that build a strong and healthy body. We don't want it to be something that is a poison.
And sorry to
And
interrupt, but
so
the whole idea of taking something outside of you to heal inside of you is wrong, right? You have to, it's what's inside of you and the tissues that will regenerate, correct?
right, yeah. And the one way you can kind of look at it is like, if you have a pile of bricks and you build them into the house, the bricks didn't build the house, the builder built the house.
Aha.
Right. So the apple is a brick, it's a piece of material. And so we can choose to put material in the body that is good for the body, that helps build a strong body, that is appropriate for our physiology and anatomy and biology. Or we can choose to put food into the body that is injuring the body, that is weak materials, that is poor building materials. But the material itself is inert, it's dead, it doesn't take any action. So one of the things that people get confused with in terms of healing and herbs is this idea that the herbs are taking action, like they're astringent, they're pulling, they're doing some sort of action, they're chelating, they're just some they're in some way taking an action. And inert things, dead things, cannot take action. So this is a false concept, right? So then we have to look at, well, why did people come upon this concept in the first place? And so what we look at is we see, okay, well, if you take a toxic herb into your body is going to respond to that as a poison, initiating detox symptoms. So if you're trying to detox your body and you're in this mindset of like, I need to detox, and then you see detox symptoms, you're going to say, oh, this herb is helping me detox. But then we don't make the same connection with like alcohol, right? If you take alcohol last night, this morning you're detoxing that alcohol.
Yeah.
We know the alcohol is a poison. We know the heroin's a poison. We know the cocaine's a poison. But where we kind of fall into a disconnect is with food and with herbs. Because we think, oh, this is a natural thing. It's like, well, cocaine is natural too. It's all of the opioids come from the poppy plant.
Yeah.
They are natural, but they're still poisons.
Yeah, coffee beans are natural, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, coffee beans are a natural substance, but they contain a pesticide in them that keeps the bugs from eating the plant. And so that's the stimulant that makes us have heart palpitations and get really hyper. And
when you say pesticide, you mean like something natural within the bean?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I see.
like a toxic chemical, yeah. That is like a pesticide, just as a word that means kill pest.
Gotcha.
Pesticide, side is kill.
Yeah, because on my end, like I was eating, like for instance, cayenne, like the Sebi thing. It's always like cayenne will take out your mucus. Those peppers will take out your mucus. But I was always thinking back then, like, man, I feel like this is not taking it out. I feel like this is creating it. So I always had this doubt in my mind. So
exactly, and the spicy peppers is another one. Dr. Morris also promotes that same idea of the cayenne pepper. He promotes it for two reasons. One, that it'll reduce your mucus because it makes your nose run, and that's a false concept. And then also the other thing that he does is he uses it for like heart conditions because it increases blood flow. So the reason that it makes our nose run is because it's very irritating to the system.
Yeah.
And so our body uses mucus to protect us.
Exactly.
So when something irritating goes into the system, our nose starts to run in order to release mucus to protect the delicate tissues of our nose. If we cut an onion, our eyes start to tear because it's such a strong, the allicin in the plant is so strong that it actually like injures the tissues of our eyes, and that's what makes our eyes tear.
Yeah.
And so, obviously that is one way where we can see that it's actually injuring the body, not helping the body. And then in terms of like the heart recommendations, well, it's increasing the blood flow, but again, so the body takes all action. So we know it's not the plant increasing the blood flow. So then we have to say, okay, well, why does the body, when this substance is applied to the body, why does the body suddenly open up blood vessels and increase the blood flow? Well, we know that when toxins go into the blood, the body wants to speed their elimination. So the body wants to open and relax the blood vessels in order to facilitate faster blood flow.
Yeah.
And so, you put something poisonous in the blood, we have a vasodilator, it opens up the blood vessels, and that allows the blood to flow faster, and then it flows out of the body faster. So the body is responding to this cayenne pepper as a poison, as
Exactly.
it treats it exactly how it treats every other poison.
So like, yeah, I heard the example of like peppermint, like for the headache. I think this was coming from fasting can save your life, but like it may, in the immediate effects, because yeah, that blood flow gets faster, some kind of a headache, like an inflammation in the head may clear faster, but down deep in the roots, nothing has really been done, right? Like
Right.
no, like the actual cause of the inflammation hasn't been hit. So let me
Right.
ask you this then. What do you think is do you think these people know this, whether it's Dr. Morse, whether it's Yaki Awakened, or do you think they're just kind of blindsided by the fact that maybe small amounts of poison can help the body? Like this theory that, you think that's what it is? What do you think it is?
Yeah, and it's hard to say. I mean, obviously, we don't know people's intentions. I do tend to like lean towards people are generally good, and so they don't. I don't think most people are intentionally trying to harm people. But there's a huge financial incentive to believing
Yeah.
this. And so it's kind of like the doctors, it's like most doctors go into medicine because they have some sort of like altruism. They want to actually help people. But then once they get into it, you're beholden to the pharmaceutical industry. You get your student loans and your office loans, and a lot of the pharmaceutical companies now offer loans to these doctors. So then they're like tied directly financially, like their entire livelihood is tied into, these pharmaceuticals. And so then it becomes a matter of like self-protection
Mm.
to just deny anything that might, cause you to question that thing that you're selling that's keeping your family, in the lifestyle that you've chosen for yourself. So I think there's always a bit of a combination of it. It's like people come into it altruistically, but then they just, they then become kind of stuck on that even when information is presented to the contrary, because they make so much money doing that. And
Yeah.
like Dr. Morris makes tons of money selling those herbs.
Oh, does he?
And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, it's like $1,000 for the kidney kit.
Oh,
and then,
jeez.
it's like, so, and that's, that's what they generally, like, if you go into any of the Dr. Morris Facebook groups, everybody's like, you got to get the $1,000 kit. You got to get the $1,000
Oh,
kit. And
jeez.
that really didn't sit well with me. Like early on, I was just
Me
like,
too. Yeah.
I can't afford that. Like, where am I going to come up with an extra $1,000? Like, that's just, I mean, for some people that might not be a lot of money, but for like somebody like me, like all of my money goes to my rescue efforts. Like, I don't have extra money just lying around
Exactly.
to spend. So, but yeah, I think what it is that, most people grow up on the medical model.
Yeah.
So the medical model says, when your body is creating symptoms, we have to stop those symptoms. Like they say, okay, your body created cleaning and repair symptoms are bad, wrong. Your body's broken, and we've got to apply poisons to the body to stop those symptoms. And the reason that they think this is based on the germ theory. So they think that, pretty much everything within medicine is either some sort of organism is attacking your body
Yeah.
from without, so a germ, a virus, bacteria.
No accountability, right?
Right. Yeah. There's no consequences to the fact that you drank alcohol and ate hamburgers and had French fries for dinner last night. It's definitely some little microscopic beastie that's
Yeah.
jumping across from somebody else into your body and causing all of your problems. But basically that's the medical mindset is the poison is in the dose is how they rationalize it. So it's like a big amount of poison will kill you. A healthy person given this poison will become unhealthy. But if you're sick and we give you this poison, it's magically going to make you well.
Yeah.
And but that is so ingrained in us from birth. I mean, it's literally like from the day you come out of the womb, they're injecting things into you, they're giving you pills, and every time you get sick as a kid, your mom gives you Tylenol and aspirin
And keep eating.
antibiotics.
You have to eat to get well.
Right, yeah, and force feeding. And so, it's natural that even when people do embrace the dietary change, like people are like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, we should be eating more naturally. But they still have that underlying detox symptoms are bad and wrong, and we need to stop them. And so it's so important that we get that like education out to people that your body
Yes.
is not attacking you. Your body is trying to help you.
Yeah.
So when you get that cold symptom, that's coughing, sneezing, that's all expulsion. That's the body pushing waste out. So if you get that stuff out, then the body gets healthier. And, so a lot of the herb sellers, they're kind of stuck on that same like medical mindset where it's like, okay, we're correct in the diet, but people are still having symptoms. So
Yeah.
we take this for the symptoms.
It's crazy. So I think this is a great segue, because I've always wondered, there seems to be a time where people kind of get sick like together. You know what I'm saying? Like there seems to be a time where it almost seems like it's like kind of, how do you say, uh, like, what's the word for it? Contagious. That's what it is.
Contagion.
And so do you think that's a result of like, maybe like, for instance, the weather gets a little bit cold, so everyone's like slightly more innervated, or maybe it's kind of like a sneeze where if you look at someone detoxing, maybe that triggers something in you, or I mean a yawn, if someone yawns, you tend to yawn. Like, what do you think that particularly is? And also, with that, I would also ask, like, maybe we can talk about this in vague terms, but the C word and all this. Do you think there's a component of like bioweapons? Like, where does that also fit into this whole arena?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about like why do we get sick? Why does it sometimes appear like people are getting sick together? And that first we have to actually start with how our brains work.
Hmm.
So we have our brains process millions of pieces of information every day, and so we have these filters that the brain puts in place. And so like if you've ever gotten in the car and driven from like point A to point B and gotten there and realized I don't remember any part of the drive,
Yeah.
right? Because it's your body has like habituated that drive,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you drive to work, you don't even like you're lost in thought.
Default
You're
mode
not,
network,
like,
right? Yeah.
yeah, you're just like out there, and but you just made it from point A to point B because your brain has filtered. Okay, I turn left, I turn right, I turn left, I turn right, and that is all like automated. So because we have so many decisions, we get like decision fatigue if we have to keep deciding everything
Mm.
throughout the day. So that's how we create these habits. Like, you get up in the morning, you have your certain morning routine, and that is habituated to you based on, just years of habits. And so the way that our brain operates is it filters information based on information it's gotten previously.
Okay.
So if I tell you the sky is blue, you're going to know that the sky is blue for the rest of your life, right? That information is kind of stuck in you. And then if somebody comes to you and says, well, actually, the sky is green, you're just going to immediately reject that, like, oh, this person's crazy. So the same thing can happen when we have, the authority figures in our life telling us, contagion is real,
I
germs
see.
attack the body, right?
So it's kind of a
And so,
placebo almost.
well, it's not that it's a placebo, but it's that we start with this one piece of information, right? So we've been given this information from people that we perceive to be,
Authority.
good-hearted authorities,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And they're the experts in the field, and so they've told us. And generally most people think I'm not smart enough to know how these things work, so I just believe the authority. So we have this information. The authority tells us, contagion is real. Now, when we look at a situation like, let's use the example of like kids in a classroom, right? You have 20 kids in the classroom and the teacher, and 2 kids get sick. Now our brain is filtering. One kid sneezed on other kid and got that kid sick, and so we ignore all of the evidence to the contrary. We ignore the fact that there were 18 other children
Exactly.
and the teacher that were exposed to the same thing but didn't get any symptoms. But the reason that we, focus on the 2 kids that got sick is because we already have that prior piece of information in our brain.
Mm.
So we have this default to look for things that prove what we know to be true.
Mm.
And, unfortunately, like in the health realm, you see this over and over again where people like want to believe that like eating meat is healthy, and so they'll
Oh,
chase
jeez.
down every rabbit hole in terms of like eating meat
Keto,
because
grass fed, raw, whatever.
yeah, and they'll fall for like all the marketing terms and like the grass fed marketing, all that, and they just don't want to hear anything, and their brain is just wired
Yeah.
to just dismiss because they've got that one piece of information like meat make me strong. And it's like if you tell them, well, meat actually makes you really weak, and it gives you all these health problems, and but it's been so ingrained in them that meat makes strong that they can't process anything else. And so we call it cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
It's basically when
And
we're
confirmation
resistant
bias.
against,
Yeah.
yeah, and confirmation bias, exactly. And so we get so we have this kind of confirmation bias in terms of like, oh, germs make sick. 2 kids got sick. They must have gotten sick from the germs. So that's why we think that way,
Yeah.
because we've been programmed essentially to think that way. But why do we actually get sick? So there's a couple of reasons. So the first one is probably the more common one, which is, maybe we'll continue with like the school classroom example. The room was sprayed down with disinfectant before the kids walked in.
Okay.
Right? And so that they inhaled that disinfectant, and then the kids have been injured by that, and so then the body starts in expulsion symptoms. So it's coughing, sneezing, runny nose, and then they have a cold.
That
So the
reminds me of when they were like spraying disinfectant stuff in the plane, and they're expecting everyone to lose their symptoms. Like, it's the dumbest
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I remember when the whole CV thing started. Um, I walked into a grocery store just as they were like dousing the grocery carts with like this like crazy smelling disinfectant. And so I walk in, and I mean within seconds I'm sneezing and I'm coughing, and then by an hour later I had full blown cold symptoms.
Yeah.
And then, because I know what I know, I was just like, okay, well, I got to fast now, let my body just, clean this out. So I just sipped water the rest of the day and, went home and rested as soon as I could. And by the end of the evening, my cold symptoms were gone. Right, but most people, you get the cold symptoms and your response is, oh,
Take
no,
some
I've got to
medicine.
take stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to eat, good chicken soup. I've got to eat. I've got to stuff my body full of stuff. I've got to take medications. And so you're taking a body that's been poisoned and
Yes.
adding more poison to it and taking away all of its energy by eating, because the digestion uses up a lot of energy. And so then we're exhausting the body, not letting it do what it needs to do to clean. And so then that cold, which for me lasts 4 hours, or maybe at most like 24 hours, for the average person will last a week, 2 weeks,
Exactly.
3 weeks. And then, we all know the person in our life who is like obsessed with going to the doctor every time they get a cold.
Oh my
and,
gosh. It's a religion, Lauren. It's a religion.
And they do it, and they get, and then but they do it because they've justified in their mind that, oh, when I get sick, my colds last a month or 2 months, I get bronchitis and I get all of these other things. And they don't realize that the reason that their cold lasts a month is because of all the poisons they're putting into the body to try to stop the cold. So it's why is my cold dragging on for weeks and weeks? I keep taking all the cold medications and the flu medications and the cough drops and it's just like, okay, well, that's why. It's, because instead of just listening to your body's trying to clean itself and just saying, I'm not going to put anything, no food in, just water, and I'm going to rest and let my body just get this gunk out of me. They're putting in all this stuff to try to suppress it. And, even though like sometimes those things may suppress it, like you may exhaust the body enough that it's not able to create an expulsion symptom. In most people, all it ends up doing is just dragging out the symptoms, and you end up going from like a 24-hour cold to a 3-week cold, a 6-week cold.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, before we skip over disinfectant real quick, what would you advise people use to, like, let's say, clean surfaces or, stuff like that?
Yeah. So generally, hot water and soap is one of your best cleaning.
What kind of soap?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if I want to clean myself, what's the best? Is lemon okay? Like vinegar? Like, what do you use?
So white vinegar, like we really don't want to use soap on our body too
Exactly,
often
right?
because it dries out the skin, it breaks down the oils. But like occasionally you get extra dirty and you need to scrub down. So you just want to use whatever soap you do choose to use. You want to use it sparingly, not very often, so that your oils in your skin don't get broken down. But you also want to try to find the most simple ingredient soap. So
Okay.
like I really like coconut soap. It's literally just made from coconuts.
Really?
Any sort of like Castile soap is just basically made from vinegars, or not vinegars, vegetables. So like the basic plant-based soaps are really good. You can use them as shampoos. You can use them to wash your dishes, and it saves you tons of money.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about all the chemicals that people use in
Holy
their house
crap.
on a daily basis, what I have in my house is I have either coconut soap or a Castile soap, and then I have white vinegar, and then I'll use oranges and lemons.
Okay.
Sometimes, if I make a spray bottle, I'll put a couple little pieces of lemon peel in there just to make
Gotcha.
it smell nice.
But for your hair, is putting lemon on it not good? Is it too caustic? Like, do I have to dilute it? What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Lemon's okay, but it can dry out your hair if you do too much of it, not diluted enough. And
Oh, and real quick, what
a
about
lot-
baking soda?
yeah. So baking soda actually makes a good shampoo,
Mm.
but it changes the pH of our hair. So you don't want to do just baking soda. What you'd want to do is you want to do like baking soda, rinse, like shampoo it in, like you put like a very small amount. Like I usually use like one of those glass like quart jars,
Mm.
and I'll put like half a teaspoon of baking soda in it, and then fill it up with water, and then
Mm.
you pour that through your hair and you kind of massage it in, and that'll strip the oils. So if you've got like a buildup of oils at your scalp, that'll strip the oils out. Then you rinse that out, and then after that you want to finish with a little bit of diluted white vinegar. So
Okay.
same thing, I take like about maybe a half an inch on the bottom of the jar of white vinegar, and then fill it up with water so it's really diluted,
Okay.
and then you just kind of like rinse it through your hair, and it detangles, and it makes your hair like nice and silky and smooth.
Yeah, that's what I was
um,
kind of naturally doing. Like I love the feeling after the acid, a little bit of acid comes in. So just
yeah,
naturally,
it
that's
makes
what.
your hair
Yeah.
nice and sick. Yeah, because our pH of our hair is a little bit more on the acid side.
Ah.
So that's, yeah, so that's why if we do the baking soda, that's a little bit more alkaline. And so when we do that, then we need to like return it back
Balance.
to
Yeah.
the right pH. Yeah. So that's what I do. Like I try to not wash my hair too often either.
Yeah. Hmm.
One of the biggest things that we need to do, like just to keep our hair healthy, is to not be constantly
Yeah.
washing it. Like, most people shower every day and
Oh
are
dear.
shampooing their hair every single day. Like once a week, once every 2 weeks is more where you should be in terms of washing it. And obviously, like if you get your hair
Super dirty.
dirty
Yeah.
for some
Exactly.
reason, then you need to do it in between. But other than that, like the goal should be working towards that. But a big problem people run into with the like they call it the no poo, the no shampoo movement, is if your diet is not correct,
Oh yeah.
your hair is going to be,
It's not gonna
your hair is
work.
not just not going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people try to get into that, and then they're like, oh, it doesn't work for my hair, my hair's too oily. It's, yeah, because you're eating too much fat in
Yeah.
your diet, and so your body's constantly pushing all that excess fat out through your hair and keeping it
I'm
oily.
eating all
So
these seed oils, but for some reason I can't get rid of the oil. You know.
yeah, yeah. And and the same thing with like our skin too. Like most people, like even within like natural foods, like if you're
Mm.
eating too much avocado and too much nuts and
Ah.
seeds,
Okay.
your skin actually gets dried out. And it's so funny because people are like, oh, your skin's dry, eat more fat, eat more oils, eat these omega-3 oils and these omega-6 oil, and that's like all of the skincare programs are like, put more oil on your face, put more oil on your face. But in reality, if you overdo the fat,
Yeah.
your skin gets dry. So like for me, because like I eat some fat. We need nuts and seeds, we need avocado, we need these foods, but we don't need them like every single day. They're very
Mm.
concentrated. We need them
Mm.
in small portions. So for me, I eat like a quarter cup of nuts every 2 or 3 days. Right? If I start to eat more than that, like say, okay, I made some guacamole and I ate like 2 whole avocados, the next day my skin's going to be dry and my hair is going to be oily,
Mm.
because your body's just pushing that excess out. So when you start to get really clean with your diet, you actually start to make these connections yourself. You just
Yes.
see it. Like I ate all week I ate no fat, and then on Friday I binged on like multiple avocados, and then Saturday I woke up and my hair was greasy and my scalp was itchy and my face was dry. It's
Lauren,
so we
I have to prepare to cry here. What about durian? What do you think about eating lots of durian? My favorite fruit.
So durian is actually really good for us, but we
Okay.
do, it's again, it's a little on the fattier side, so we just want to eat it in more moderation. So
Okay.
you don't want to do like, all day, every day, 7 days a week durian as much
Oh
as I would love to.
no.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys have much better durian where you are
No, no, right now I'm
than
in Korea. It's cold, it's snowing, there's no durian. I'm sad, but I'm always picturing
oh
durian, and that's my favorite fruit. I don't know, like I feel like if I had durian, I would never need to crave cooked foods ever again. Like the I don't know how to say the skin, or like the actual meat itself, the skin of it, and just how it's the consistency of it and everything. It's like, how is that a fruit? It makes no
yeah,
sense. But
yeah, it's a neat fruit too, man. Those
yeah.
spikes, and you're like, man, I wish we could grow it here, because like if they didn't grow into like, I think the trees grow to like 60 or 70 feet or
Yeah.
something like
Oh
that.
my
Like I've been
gosh.
trying to figure out how can I get a greenhouse tall enough to grow my own durian here
Actually, I've
in
seen people
Texas.
that cut the main stem and they just keep it short, And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll work well because they're probably heavily pesticiding and fertilizing and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, they keep it short. And then, yeah, if you had some kind of a greenhouse, perhaps, yeah, who knows?
Yep. Well, that's our goal eventually is to get a big like a 30-foot hoop house. So like, 30 feet of height. So that's my goal is that, is
Fantastic.
I'm gonna try to grow some durian and some jackfruit and like, because I know you can do with other trees, like you can cut the main stem like you
Yeah.
said, and then it kind of grows out on the side branches and you can keep it short that way if you just prune it every year.
Mm-mm-mm.
So I will whenever I get my property and I can set that up. That's going to be the first thing that I'm going to plant into that
Fantastic.
greenhouse is some durian seeds. But yeah, durian's great. But yeah, again, it's just more fat, so just you want to balance it with other like buttery
Okay.
fruits and things like that. But so we should get back to what causes people to get sick. 'Cause
Mm-mm.
we covered the one, which is like inhaling chemicals, drinking water that's got chemicals in it or something like that. That's obviously going to trigger a cleaning event.
Mhm.
The other most common is holidays and just like binge eating. So like in
Ah,
the US we have October
yeah.
through March is cold and flu season. And
Ah,
it's
yeah.
also
Thanksgiving,
Halloween,
Christmas,
Thanksgiving,
yeah, New
Christmas, New
Year's,
Year's,
yeah.
Valentine's Day, and then Easter. And a lot of people get sick like right now, right? The end of January, because we have New Year's resolutions. And so what happens is you've got Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas and New Year's where everybody's eating the worst of the worst, right? You're binging on candy on Halloween. You're binging on turkey and gravy and pies. Then you're binging at Christmas. And then, New Year's, you're drinking all this alcohol. And then, you realize, oh, I put on 10 or 20 pounds during the holiday season. So my New Year's resolution is going to be to get healthy. And so we make this radical shift in our diet.
Mm.
And, so we've gone from burden to I'm going to lift some burden. And, people maybe not eating perfectly, not healthy, but they're making enough of a shift in their diet from heavy burden to lighter burden
Mm-mm-mm.
that their body has more energy and
Yeah.
it can actually start to clean. And so the second most common reason that we have detox symptoms is that the body is burdened, it's underburdened from our diet, and then that burden gets lifted a little bit, and then the body takes the opportunity to purge. And so that's when we get like our big heavy colds and flus, the ones that last weeks, because we've been misfeeding our body for months
Yes.
or years for most people. So that's the second most common. And then you had mentioned like cold and temperatures. And yeah, absolutely. So temperature can have an effect. So, there's a couple of things that kind of go into it in terms of like winter, you figure you're inside more, so you're breathing in more dirty air,
Mm.
or internal air quality is much worse than getting fresh air outside. You're not getting as much sun. So your body's, kind of running low on vitamin D and, just sunlight and all of the things that it provides for us. So we're getting a little bit, weaker in that terms. Because we're inside more, we do tend to like binge more. We're bored, so we're eating more junk food in the winter. It's cold, so you tend to want to eat heavier meals and cooked foods. Even though eating heavier foods and cooked foods actually make us colder because they require more
Yeah.
energy, so the body can't like keep up, with its temperature regulation because it's using all of its energy in digestion. But we want that hot food.
Yeah.
So, all of those things kind of combine together. And then temperature regulation requires energy.
Wait, so
So,
Lauren, do you
and
never have a soup? Like ever?
I make raw soups. So, like,
Okay,
yeah, if
gotcha.
I want something, I mean, and, I wouldn't say never. Like, if we're going out to eat with like family and friends, I might have like a
Okay,
little bit of
gotcha.
food here and there.
Gotcha.
But for me, like at this point, for me, the the consequences come so quickly
Yeah,
that it's not worth it.
me
And it's
too.
like I'm so busy, like running all these groups and teaching people and stuff. It's like I can't afford to be down for the count for like 3 or 4 days just because I wanted to have like some sweet potatoes or something like that.
No, because
So it's like,
Lauren, in Korea, it's a rice culture, right? And whenever I put rice into my mouth, I feel immense guilt. This overwhelming sense of guilt just overcomes me. So I can't even look at it. I'm just like, what is this?
yeah. Um, Yeah, and you know, starches, like, you know, I mean, and if we're gonna eat cooked food, like rice, potatoes, like those are probably like some of the less,
Rice,
you know,
really?
burdensome ones.
I
But
feel
the
like it's
big problem
glue.
with
It
them,
must be like poison.
yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say, is that the big problem with those is how much they constipate us, and
Oh,
so
great segue.
what
Oh,
ends up.
sorry, would you say then that like sweet potato, chestnut, and I mean corn is so GMO'd, but you know these kinds of things cooked, maybe they're perhaps a lot better than the rest? What do you think?
So the starches will create a lot of constipation,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Like you said, it's you know, that glue. So that's the primary problem with them, is that look, we can digest starch well if we chew it really thoroughly, because
Mm,
we have ptyalin in our saliva, but we
mm,
don't have it in our stomach. So the key with starches is, you know, we got to be making sure that we're getting lots of saliva around them, and then we want to be,
ah,
if we're going to eat them, we want to follow them up with something that's really high fiber, like a big giant salad, because
to
they
push
are
it.
so sluggish moving through. We want something that's going
Gotcha.
to broom push it through.
Interesting.
So if you're gonna have an indiscretion, you know, and you lean towards those starches, that, you know, as long as you kind of follow that rule of like follow it up with a big giant salad, you're gonna have a
Mm,
lot less symptoms than, you know, say eating obviously like meat or dairy products or things like that.
got
But
it.
the problem with the starches is that they ferment.
Yes.
So the
With sugar, correct?
yeah, because starch is a type of
Oh,
sugar.
okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So, you know, so like just like apples can ferment, you know, starches can ferment as well, but because they're a much more concentrated sugar, so there's a lot more fermentation very quickly.
Mm,
So, you know, when you ferment things, you create alcohol in your digestive tract, and so
mm,
alcohol is a poison, and
yeah.
so that's why we get more symptoms with the like the rice or the potatoes and things like that, because you're it's kind of like a combination of, it's going to be more fermentable, so it's going to produce more alcohol, and then it's also got less fiber, less ability to move through, and so it's going to be very sluggish and moving through, and so the
So
alcohol
more
is going to be staying in the
fermentation.
system a lot longer, versus like if you eat like a watermelon and your watermelon ferments, it's going to move through your digestive tract very
Mm,
quickly, and so it's going to be eliminated much more quickly, and you're going to have
got
less
it.
symptoms coming out of that.
Okay, well, so I've been fasting recently just because, you know, Dr. Herbert was saying like a young person should maybe also consider fasting before any symptoms arise, just to have, you know, clean your body. What are your opinions of that? What's kind of safe, for instance? And because I did like a 48-hour fast maybe like a week and a half ago, and literally today, this morning, I came out of a 60-hour, and then I don't know. So for me, my lips get really dry, and I'm drinking lots of water. Unfortunately, I don't have a distiller here, so I'm doing just the natural water that's here on this mountain, which is probably not the best because of all those hard water minerals. But I get this dryness, and then sorry to bombard you with questions at once, but also how do you know when a person's fasting, like when it's safe? Because you know Michelle introduced me to you, and I was like following her progress as well because I'm curious, right? How do you know when someone's fasting and they're like out of energy, that this is the out of energy that's necessary because the body's targeting the poisons and removing them, versus like you know, approaching starvation type kind of thing? Like how do you make that uh, different?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a difficult thing to judge sometimes,
Okay.
especially for people who are very thin, or you know, have like very serious disease conditions. So, um, so in terms of like how often we should be fasting, and you know, fasting when we're young and healthy is great.
Okay.
You know, it is giving your body that cleaning, and you know, just helping you keep up on any, you know, backlog that
The
might be
real
building.
booster, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So if you don't like, you know, even if you don't have like a major disease symptom, you can still benefit from fasting, absolutely. But there's a few things that we want to do. So first of all, we don't want to fast too often,
Okay.
right? So we don't want to do a lot of short fasts.
Ah, really?
Ideally, yeah. So the first 72 hours of a fast, your body is first burning through whatever fuel you ate the day before.
Mm.
So that usually lasts about 18 hours into the fast. And then the body shifts into getting its energy from the muscle tissues.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're breaking down muscle tissue from roughly around 18 hours to 72 hours.
Mm.
And then at 72 hours, the body shifts into ketosis, and this shifts from
Fats.
it starts conserving the muscle tissue and burning fat and also cellular debris. So, like if somebody has cancer and they've got tumors in the body, once the body hits that 72-hour point and moves into ketosis, then their body is starting to burn up those cancer cells, because there's like the body's going to go after to cannibalize for energy whatever is like the least valuable. So whatever's damaged material, whatever's less suitable material. And so the body wants to conserve the muscle and
burn the
move
fat.
into that ketosis, right?
Interesting.
So if we're doing a lot of 24-hour, 48-hour fasts,
I'm just losing my muscle.
yeah, you are. And when you're young, it's not a huge deal because you'll burn it back. You build it back, especially like if you're hitting the gym and you're working out, or you're just doing like push-ups and things like that around the house. You're going to build that back up.
Okay.
But when we have somebody that's like very sick and very chronically ill, we don't want them to be doing these short fasts frequently, because that's what a lot of people get into, is like, oh, I can't really rest and do a month-long fast, so I'm just going to do a 3-day fast every single month, and that'll add up to the same amount of time over a year, and but it doesn't work that way.
Gotcha.
Because we've got to move into ketosis to start to do that deeper cleaning. So what I generally think is a good idea is to do like 1 7 to 10 day fast every year or every other year.
Okay.
Would be like a good amount of fasting, because fasting does put the body under stress as well.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Because it's your body, when we fast, it's essentially like we're feast or famine, right? We're entering a famine state, and so there is a level of stress that is created during that process. There's the good far outweighs the bad in terms of get the body's ability to clean out and get all of that out, but it should be balanced. It should be not doing a 21-day fast every single year. Like most people will probably need 2 or maybe 3 21-day fasts throughout their whole life, right? And there's sometimes people like Dr. Shelton would have people like in really extreme conditions that would come and do a 40-day fast and then refeed for 2-3 months, 6 months, and then come back and do another 40-day fast in the same year to heal from like severe chronic conditions. But but that's like the extremes, right? So most people are not coming to this in that kind of extreme level of disease, and they're kind of hopefully starting out on this fasting process younger and a little bit more vital, and so you don't necessarily need a lot of really long fasts, but we should be doing something that's maybe once a year or once every other year. I think that's generally good. The bigger part is that we're feeding ourselves correctly. And I think that's another thing that people get into too, is number one, they're struggling to stay on the diet, so they figure it'll be easier to just fast. But then they come out of the fast and break onto cooked foods and undo any good they may have done. Because when we fast, the body sheds all that mucus plaque that is lining the digestive tract. And so if you come back out of the fast and break onto cooked foods, you're going to be injuring your digestive tract because there's no more mucus there to protect it. So one thing I always recommend to people is like, get yourself well established on the raw food diet for at least a minimum of 6 months, but my preference is at least a year.
Okay.
Be in the habit. Be completely comfortable with your habit before you start fasting.
What about, let's say someone develops severe symptoms? Should they maybe eat for like 3 or so days from natural hygiene and then go into the fast in case their their reserves are poor or something like that?
So if you say like, you've been eating poorly and then all of a sudden you got a flu and you've got nausea and vomiting, then in that case, you should move directly into fasting, because any amount of food going into the body actually becomes dangerous at that point.
Gotcha.
And so, like, if you look at people who go to the hospital frequently for flu or colds, and they're, being fed and drugged, they very frequently move into pneumonia, because it's, cold, flu, and pneumonia are all on the same spectrum.
Yeah.
They're all, pneumonia is just a very bad cold that you have fed. It's, it's basically, if you get a cold and you keep stuffing your body with food and drugs, you're going to end up with pneumonia.
Yeah.
So if we have something like that where, you get cold symptoms, you get flu symptoms, even if you're still eating cooked foods, at that point you do want to move into a fast just until the symptoms clear.
Gotcha.
But if you're thinking about undertaking a longer fast, if you're thinking about taking a fast of like 7 days to 30 days, 40 days, definitely set yourself up for success by first being very well established in your routines and your habits of the raw food diet, because you don't want to break the fast and fall back into the cooked food. And if you don't have those habits established, you are going to go back to the cooked food.
So let's real quick, breaking the fast then, or after, just explain what you're going to explain, and then breaking the fast versus like long fast and short fast.
Yeah. So when we do like a short fast, if we're doing like 24, 48, anything under 72 hours, you can pretty much just go back to your normal eating.
Okay.
You don't have to do anything special. Fast of 7 to 10 days, usually that the first day we're going to eat like, when you first break the fast, your first meal should be like 1 piece of fruit. You want to make sure that your digestion's okay, that you're not just going to immediately vomit it up. You want to go really slow. You want to chew really thoroughly, just because your digestion's been
make
shut
it easy
down.
for your body, right?
Right, exactly. So you want to chew slowly, really savor it. Have the 1 piece of fruit, then wait a few hours, and then you can have like 2 or 3 more pieces of fruit. But you're going to start pretty slow. So the first day, some people will only eat like maybe 3 or 4 pieces of fruit the whole day. Other people, you can move a little bit faster, and you might have like 1 piece of fruit the first meal, and then like 2 or 3 meals of 2 or 3 pieces of fruit. But then we want to start ramping up pretty quickly coming out of the fast. So we don't want to be hovering under our calorie needs.
I see.
For too long. So you don't want to have the people who are coming out of the fast, and like the first week all they're doing is eating like 300 or 500 calories at a time for like 7 days. Now we generally want to be ramping back up, like doubling our fruit intake each day. So if the first day you did like 1 piece of fruit, and then 2, and then 2, then the next day you'd want to be doing like 2, 4, 4, and just kind of bumping it up as much as you can. And everybody's going to be different. First of all, like if you fast to completion, then when you come out of the fast, your body's going to be like ready for food.
Yeah.
And it's going to
completion, just to clarify, meaning the bad taste in the tongue is out in the sweet breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and you usually have like a coating on your tongue, like a white.
Yeah.
It could be gray, yellow, brown, black,
Yeah.
depending on the condition of the body. So when that clears,
Gotcha.
then that would be fasting to completion. But there's lots of times where we cannot fast to completion. Like you were mentioning, like if somebody's very thin starting out, someone who's very thin starting out cannot fast to completion.
Okay.
They're going to have to break their fasts up. They're going to have to do a shorter fast of like 7 to 10 days.
Gotcha.
And then refeed, and then do another 7 to 10 days, and then refeed.
Such important information, Lauren. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And so when we're refeeding, we want to generally start with fruit, and then most people, you can add your salad back in around like day 3.
Okay.
But if your digestion is off, then you're going to hold off on the salad a little bit longer. And you want to keep your meals very simple for the first few days, and then just kind of gradually add new things. Generally, we want to stay away from the fats for the first few days too.
Interesting.
So, it might be like, day 1, all fruit, day 2, all fruit, but you're doubling your calories. Day 3, you have fruit in the morning, salad at night, but no overt fats. And then as long as that goes well, maybe day 4, you might try like a very small amount of like avocado with your salad or something like that. If you've done a really long fast, like a 21-day, a 30-day fast, you might not add in the fats until week 2. And, you have to kind of judge by how your digestion's going. The other thing we should expect when coming out of a fast is I always tell people, prepare for 3 times the length of the fast for everything to be back to normal. So when we go into a fast, like a lot of people think, oh, I'll just fast for like 7 days and then I'll come out of it. Everything will be perfect. I'll be feeling great. That rarely happens.
That's the case. Okay.
Yeah, usually what happens is you feel pretty good during the fast because there's nothing like that, churning. But then as soon as you restart the digestive tract, all of that material, that, garbage that was, filtered during the fast is hitting the digestive tract, and it's causing constipation, diarrhea, your digestion's off. You're going to feel like you're going to have days where you have absolutely no energy because the body's just dumping all of its energy into getting all of this waste out. You're going to have digestive upset. You might vomit, which is not super fun. So like you need to prepare in terms of resting as well. And a lot of this depends on how toxic the body is to start. So somebody who's very young and is learning about this, at a young age and is, able to just start doing this, most of the time they're going to have like pretty uneventful fasts. They might occasionally have a deeper cleaning where it's,
Yeah, dry
it takes
lips.
them like
What's that about?
dry lips is the acids coming out.
Oh,
So yeah, and sometimes our skin gets dry. So it depends on like what your body's particular avenues are, how your body chooses to go about things. Like some people have a lot of stuff come out at their gums, and then you'll see like the gums recede, or you'll see like their teeth will get like a little bit of like staining and stuff as the acids start coming out. Some people will get it like on their skin. Sometimes it's just like my skin is dry and itchy, and then other times it can be like you've got a big giant rash across your skin from the acids coming out, or your fingertips turn red and start like throbbing and hurting because the acids are all coming out down at the fingertips. And our body does like to push to the extremities. So like obviously if we've got like a lot of acid conditions, the body wants to protect the organs because those are essential, and it'll sacrifice the arms and the hands and the feet because they're less essential. So, a lot of times people will have the acids kind of coming out the fingers and the toes because the body's trying to push everything out to the extremities.
smart body. But
Yeah.
let's see. Okay, so so what would be the ideal not fasting or anything like that, the ideal day of eating? Because like I've heard many kind of like opinions of, some people think you should have less greens, some people think you should have more, but what I've heard was like as much fruit as you eat with a high calorie amount, right? You want to have the same volume in leafy greens and then very little nuts and seeds. Am I far
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of it. Yeah, we generally recommend that you eat two fruit meals, or if you can eat like one really large fruit meal and you do 2 meals per day. Most people starting out will start out with 2 or 3 fruit meals, depends on how much you can fit in your stomach. You want to make sure that you're hitting enough calories, getting enough calories in, and that's where a lot of people really struggle. So we'll talk about that a little bit real quick, but in terms of like just the ideal, you want to be having like at least one large fruit meal or 2 medium-sized fruit meals and a large salad every night.
Gotcha.
That's your ideal. And then you can incorporate some dried fruits, some nuts and seeds, and avocado sparingly. So they're very concentrated foods. So when we eat them, we should be eating them in smaller quantities. And I always tell people like a good way to like test your own, what your body really wants is to get nuts in the shell, because we're so used to having the shell
Yeah,
nuts where it's like you don't have to do any work to actually
exactly.
eat them, so you can very quickly shovel them into your mouth
Yeah,
without
not
realizing
natural.
you're
Yeah.
yeah. And so if you instead sit down with like your walnuts in a shell, and each one you have to crack individually,
Which
and
is fun.
and then eat,
Yeah.
it is fun, and it slows you down, and then it allows your brain to catch up to your stomach, and so you'll actually feel much more satisfied. Like if I just grab a bag of walnuts
No, I
and
totally
just start
agree.
snacking on them, I
Yeah.
could eat like 20 or 30 of them
Yeah.
without like before I hit my point. But when I do it with the shell, it's like after 4 or 5, I'm good. I'm satisfied
Exactly.
because I'm eating them so much more slowly than
Because
my
that's
body's
how
actually
God meant for
triggering.
you to eat them, right?
Exactly. So yeah, so anything with like concentrated foods, it's always good to like try to get back to the most natural so that you can see where your portions should be. And then after that, if you want to use the shelled ones, that's fine, but at least but like a good general rule of thumb is a quarter cup, start there. If you're working out a lot, if you're in the gym every day, your body can probably handle more. But for the average person, a quarter cup is a good place to start, and then you can kind of play with that.
Got it.
And then try not to eat them every single day. Break it up, because where we see the most problems with people eating nuts and seeds is first of all, they overeat on them.
Yeah,
most people
me.
overeat on them,
Yeah.
and they get symptoms. And most people, they'll eat them every day, and so then you get into like the habit of the addiction of it, right?
And you never give
So
your
if
body a
you-
chance to just chill out, right?
Yeah. So if you simply just like implement a new rule for yourself, where it's like I can eat my nuts and seeds, but I'm only going to eat them every other day, then you break the habit of like utilizing them as like an emotional suppressant, overeating on them, and it really makes it a lot easier to manage your fat intake. And the other thing, just real quick, is if anybody's struggling with that, like those fat cravings, a fast of 2 or 3 days will actually reset our dopamine and reset like our pleasure centers, and that will really help you get over those type of cravings.
Wonderful.
So anytime you're like really struggling with a craving, 2 to 3 day fast will actually just reset.
And I'm guessing this holds true for cooked foods as well, because I've noticed that, after you do a long time on fruit, any little bit of salted food is like, whoa, this is way too seasoned, But if you're like constantly eating cooked foods, you never realize how much, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like a drug addiction, right? Like,
It really
the
is.
heroin addict
Oh
keeps going back to the heroin because they don't want to feel the symptoms of coming off of it.
Yes.
And so with salt is probably the most abused drug in the world. Everybody uses it. Everybody abuses it. And the abuse, like I always say, like, I'm assaulting myself with salt. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you use that kind of language, then it really drives home what it is. But it's like, if you, like, I remember when I quit salt totally for several years, and then I went through a period where I had like just kind of gotten off track and was eating cooked food and going out to eat, and so I started to have the salt. And then it was so hard to get off the salt the second time. The first time it was really easy. But the second time coming back to it was so hard. And I literally said multiple times, I was like, I feel like a crack addict. I'm like totally addicted and I can't like stop. But that's exactly what it is that when you start to cut out the drug, you go through those same type of detox symptoms that the heroin addict goes through when they go to rehab. It's awful. So you feel bad, so then you want to go back and get more of the stimulation because you don't want to feel the consequences of it. And so that's how we end up with these addictions, unfortunately. But yeah, so salt, definitely, that's a tough one, and a lot of people really struggle with that. But in terms of the cooked food, a big reason why people go back to cooked food after eating fruit for a while is just underfeeding.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we're not giving our body enough calories and fruit early in the day, then at the end of the night, the body's going to be looking for those calories, and it's going to say, oh, well, I know in the past, you fed me a sweet potato and it was calorie dense, right? And so that's why we see so many people struggling with that, where they're trying to eat the fruit, and then, at the end of the night, they're just like binging on potatoes or rice or, all these starchy foods, pasta, things like that. And it's just because you're just not getting enough calories in on your fruit early in the day. So, if you could focus on that. And a lot of times the reason for that is when we eat cooked food, it shrinks our stomach. And
Really?
So it takes a long time for our stomach to actually stretch back out and expand.
Interesting.
So when I started this diet, if I ate 3 bananas, I was absolutely stuffed. Like, that was a meal for me, 3 bananas. Today, I can eat like 15 or 20 bananas in one meal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but like that's, 15 bananas, that's 1,500 calories. So if you're having 15 bananas for one meal and then you're having a salad of like 500 calories, that's 2,000 calories for the day. I mean, there are days where I'm out like mountain biking and, I'm burning through 3,000 calories. So, I've got to be able to get those fruit meals in, and, those larger quantities of fruits. So like on average, usually what I eat is maybe like 7 to 10 bananas. But, on the days where I'm like really burning through a lot of calories, I'm going to be eating, 15, 20 bananas.
Holy
and
moly.
then, maybe a meal of like 2 pounds of grapes later, and then a big giant salad at night.
Man, it's just
Um,
bananas suck in Korea because they pick them unripe and then they bring them here and they're probably spraying them too and they just taste like butt. Like in Saipan they have those smaller bananas and so many varieties. It's like so
yeah,
much more of a pleasant experience of eating them. Like you can eat them right as they're getting ripe. I mean like when they're starting to spot a bit, but in Korea you have to eat them when they're brown to actually even remotely enjoy them because they're just so icky. It's crazy.
yeah. Is that like? Do you guys have the Cavendish, the big long ones?
I think so. Like the
The
typical ones that you see
Yeah.
wherever there aren't bananas, they're going to import them in.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's the same thing in the US. Like, so there's a couple things you can do. I mean, first of all, we shouldn't be eating bananas until they are full of brown spots. They're
Mm-mm-mm.
not ripe. Like, so if you have a banana that's like yellow and still got green on the stem, that's way too
Yeah,
starchy. That's gonna
exactly.
give you like a stomach ache. So what we're looking for is a full coat of brown spots, and then the skin is soft, like the fruit is soft. Um,
And the
Sometimes
smell
what
too.
happens, yeah, yeah, you should be able to smell your banana. Um, Sometimes what happens is they will refrigerate the bananas, and
Mm.
so the there you go. um, the the skin will like either stay green, but then the banana's actually ripe on the inside, or sometimes
Yeah,
it's like
it's crazy.
sometimes you'll get the ones where it's like brown on the outside, but then still hard on the inside. It's
Ugh.
awful. So that yeah, if you can get like the Thai bananas or the little baby
Mm.
bananas, those have a much better flavor overall.
Yeah, seriously.
The Cavendish is probably like the worst tasting
Oh,
banana,
ugh.
but yeah, so it's like you have to wait for it to get like really nice and ripe, good, like
Yeah,
full of brown spots. Um, but like here in the US, like bananas are our lifeblood because they're just so cheap compared to
yeah.
everything else. Like I can get a pound of bananas for 47 cents, but apples are like, $1.99 a pound. So
Hey,
it's
Lauren, this is a
huge
great
savings.
segue. So, for people that are living in the cold, and let's say you don't have access to bananas, you have to do some form of whether it's sweet potato or you saved up grains. What do those people do? Like, for instance, like my friend went to go visit these, like, there's this book called Anastasia and the Ring Cedars, right? And there are these communities that are forming that, want to be more self sustainable and want people like more high vibe people to live together and so on and so forth and garden and eat your own food. But those people that are like very far out and in colder areas, what do they do? And are colder areas not right for man? Those two questions.
Yeah, so like over time as our populations expanded, we've moved further and further from like the tropical regions. So, mankind is really meant to be a tropical creature. But I think there's a certain misconception about like the ability of fruit to grow in the cold.
Mm,
And I think it's just because we're accustomed to very specific fruits, and
yeah.
so we only see what like we're used to eating. So we're used to those tropical fruits, but the reality is if you look around where you're living, if there are deer, if there's bunnies, if
Mm,
there's like these little fruit eating creatures, then there's also
true.
fruit.
Mm.
So like I actually just had this lesson the other day. Out in front of my house we have an old like 60-year-old pear tree, and then next to it are five Bradford pears. And
Whoa.
in Bradford pear is like it's like a flowering tree. Most people consider it a weed tree. And it grows wild here in Texas. And
Mm.
I've always thought about them. Like I've lived here for 3 years, and every time I look at them, I'm like, oh, you're a weed. You don't provide anything. Well, my dogs decided to teach me otherwise. Um, as we had some cold weather, it dropped below freezing here for a few days, and a whole bunch of the little they look like little hard like fruits, but they're like the size of like a marble.
Mm.
And on the tree, they're like rock hard. So you
Yeah.
pick them and you're like, oh, that's not edible. But after the freeze, they fell to the ground in like thousands of them all across my sidewalk. And so I
Oh,
was walking
wow.
my dogs, and the dogs just started chowing down on them. And they were just eating them. It was like the best thing. And like literally, like they wouldn't couldn't leave the spot. I'm like trying to drag them for their walk, and they're like, no, we're having a feast. So I finally just like picked one up out of the grass and tried it. And I was like, oh, these are awesome. They taste like a mix between a cranberry and a pear.
Okay.
And they're like, after the freeze, they get really soft. And so they're like a nice, like ripe pear texture. And you know, and so it's like there's these things all around us that we just don't even recognize.
No, exactly. But you would have to like make sure to eat a lot of them, right? For the calorie wise, or
yeah. So, but like the trees there, I mean, like I could fill like
buckets.
bushels.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, because it's like every branch, like in a section this big, you'll have like 100 fruits. I mean, it's just it's like so densely packed on the tree. And you know, it's the same thing with kind of like blueberry bushes or blackberries, raspberries. You know, it's like this fruit is really small, but it's abundant on the.
And I guess during like cold seasons, you could kind of preserve your fruits. Like if you harvest a lot of them, perhaps you could preserve your fruits in the cold or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain trees like citrus trees. Citrus is ripe right now, so there's every you know, there's different seasons for every fruit.
Exactly.
So like the persimmons start in like November, and so you would be able to like take the persimmons off the tree and put them in storage, and then they'll ripen over like 3-4 months. Things like apples store really well. You can take apples and put them in a cool, dark place, and they will last for like 4 months.
Yeah.
So. And apples are like a winter fruit, right? They come in the fall. They produce in the fall, and so you'd have like you can eat them through the whole fall, and then you've got like 4 months through winter where you can store them. So and then nuts and seeds. Part of the reason we're supposed to eat nuts and seeds is because they are winter producers. So like right now, my pecan trees are dropping pecans.
Nice.
You know, and then we have like the hackberry trees are dropping their little nuts and stuff like that. So there's so much stuff out there that we just
don't know.
Yeah, we're just so disconnected that we don't realize it. And like I have friends up in Michigan, and they have like a big orchard, and they trade fruit with other people in their region, and so we have this like backlog. We have this just like lost information essentially.
Yes.
And so we have this idea programmed into us that like we can't live in these regions, but even if you look at like the Inuits, right? Everybody loves to say, oh, the Inuits, they thrive on meat and all of that. Well, I mean, they don't. They've cut their natural lifespan in half. But one of the things that they do is, as soon as the ground thaws, they're picking all of the wild berries. So, hate to disappoint those carnivore diet people, but it's like they don't even eat all meat. Like they literally are, obsessed with getting the berries because they know how important it is to survive, to have those berries. So like an example of the Inuits is like somebody living in a very cold climate. They've moved to a very harsh climate, which is not good for them. And as such, they've
suffered the
cut their
consequences.
natural lifespan in half because they're eating such non-ideal foods. They're eating to survive, not to thrive.
Lauren, would it be better for them to fast instead of eating the meat?
Well, I mean, calorie-wise, I think you wouldn't be able to.
Because I've always had this question in my mind, like, is it better just to not eat the stuff? Like, let's say if you don't have anything around you and there's only like rice and sweet potato or whatever, is it better just to not even eat that and just,
I mean, it all depends on calories. Like, obviously, there's a difference between fasting and starvation.
Exactly.
So if we're able to eat enough calories, the rest of the year, like, you might live in a climate where you have like 3 months of very limited food sources. But then, come spring, summer, and fall, you're able to pack on the pounds with all of this, fruit and nuts and things like that. And then maybe you just have like a small ration of things to carry you through the winter. Then, that you would be like semi-fasting, you'd be eating, maybe eating like nuts and seeds and things like that to maintain calories but you'd be putting on the weight over the rest of the year, and then having like your little period of famine. So we could survive like that. I think it would be a little bit more stress than
not ideal
in a more tropical regions where we have that,
where you have durian.
Where you have the durian and actual pineapples that are actually
ripe,
real pineapples.
Oh,
Yeah, the pineapples we get here are like green,
oh,
pale yellow, and it's like if you've ever seen a real pineapple,
yes.
it's like this like vibrant orange
Oh, yeah.
colored skin, and it's just yeah,
It's
it's
God,
sad.
it's
It's sad the
amazing.
state of our fruit.
But
Um,
okay, okay, I totally forgot what I was. Oh, sorry, coconut water. So I don't know if you know, but I'm like the Korean Tarzan. So I like make steps on these trees, go up and harvest them. So sometimes I have like 40 coconuts that I'm working through like in a few
that's
days.
awesome.
But I'm thinking, is it okay to drink that much coconut water? Because I was kind of thinking, this is the best water I have. You know, like if I don't have a distiller, I should just focus on coconut water. Screw it. What was I wrong?
Not entirely. I mean, there's actually been cases where it, people like throughout the wars have been like dropped on these tropical islands and like just stuck there for a year or
Hmm.
more, and have survived literally on just like coconuts and like a few like
Hmm.
local berries and things like that. And I recall like one of the cases. I think the guy had heart disease, and then when they found him like a
Oh,
year
he was
later
cured.
eating the coconut, yeah, he was cured. He was like super healthy and and like muscular and really fit. So yeah, like coconut's definitely one of those ideal foods. Like bananas are kind of one of our ideal foods too, like
Hmm.
very calorie dense.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if you've got fresh coconuts, I would say like I mean, within reason, if you start like drinking it and it's making you nauseous, then that's your
Okay,
body
okay,
telling
gotcha.
you
Haven't
I've
got
had
to
too
that point
much.
yet.
But yeah, yeah,
Oh no,
I mean,
but okay, and
coconut's
then the meat,
wonderful.
because I don't know if you know, but like when the coconut's in like its mid stage, which is like when it's the most sweet, like when it's still on
Yeah,
the tree, and the meat is like octopus like almost, and then
yeah, it's like thin and kind of slimy a little
yeah,
bit.
and then versus when it's in its drop down stage and either when it's sprouted or before it's sprouted and there's still that heavy fatty water in there, and then with the very thick fat,
Hmm.
what's the difference there? So you shouldn't have that much fat, but like can you have more fat with the mid range one? Like what do you think?
Yeah, I would say probably the more the immature coconut, or like what in the US we usually call it like the Thai coconut
Okay.
versus like the mature coconut.
Yeah.
I don't know what like people refer to it around the world, but I would say like the Thai coconut, where it's like a little bit thinner, it's not as fatty. That's probably a little bit more ideal for
Okay.
us, but I think either one is pretty good in moderation. Like you just don't like with anything. Like we want variety.
Okay.
That's one thing that like I think a lot of the raw food groups kind of get
Forget.
off in the weeds
Yeah.
with like yeah, like the watermelon island, the grape only fast and things like that. It's like you're like yes, is that better than eating cooked food? Of course. Is it gonna help you
But you're
heal
giving us a
immediately
bad
from the
name.
cooked food? But it's too extreme. It's
Yeah.
and you're making your body work too hard because you're not providing the variety that the body needs.
Yes.
So like we have this, God gave us this abundance of fruits and nuts and seeds and vegetables, and like we should be enjoying them. We should be,
Right.
enjoying the abundance of everything that we eat. So, like variety, and it's okay to eat oranges all month long in December because it's the best, ripest fruit that you can find.
Hmm.
But, come, spring, when other things are coming into season, then we want to be shifting into other things. And, like, when people are eating like Watermelon Island in the middle of December, I'm like,
Uh,
it's not even good watermelon. Like, like for me, like I won't even touch watermelon unless it's like July or August.
hmm.
I won't even eat it because it's like if you've ever had good watermelon, you never want to go back to
Yeah.
stuff that you're getting in like off season. But also watermelon ferments so easily.
Ah, okay.
So it's like if you're not getting peak ripe watermelon and then you're trying to eat it, your digestion is just going to be like fermentation,
I
and
see.
that's setting you back. So yeah, definitely like we want variety. We want to be eating seasonally. In the winter we might be eating more fats. In the summer we're going to be eating more of those watery fruits, and then calorie density too. So like if you're eating nothing but watermelons, like in order to hit your calorie needs, eating nothing but watermelon, you need to eat roughly a 25 to 30 pound watermelon.
Okay, so that's like
You know,
what? How big?
most people
Like
eat,
huge?
yeah, no, it's like one of those big, super long ones. Yeah, it's like, the size of a toddler. That's what
Which
you
I
need to
can
be
do, by the
eating.
way, but it's hard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, and I could do it, but it's like, it's not comfortable. I don't
Yeah,
really
and you
want
feel
to
like,
spend my
oh,
whole day eating the watermelon,
yeah,
right? So it's like we've got to remember those things too. Is like, and that's just that, like our nature is like, we want like quick fixes, we want instant
yeah,
gratification, we want like magic pills, and so we kind of do, like, even within the natural space, we tend to like gravitate towards those more, like, oh, this is going to help me speed up detox, this
yeah.
is going to help me,
Shortcut, you know?
do this. Yeah, yeah. That's the same thing too with like the greens. Like, there's a lot of misinformation around greens, and
Mm,
people will say like, "Oh,
perfect.
if you eat greens, it's going to slow down your detox." That's absolutely not true. We need alkaline minerals. It's
Mm,
actually like one of the most essential things that we need, and I think even the best, like, fruitarians are not eating enough of their minerals.
mm,
Um, we need balance, because if you eat only fruit, you're giving your body an overabundance of sugar. So
mm.
anything that we have in excess is a potential disease cause. So if the body is having to work hard to burn off all that extra sugar or store that extra sugar, then you're not operating optimally. But what we do need is those alkaline minerals in abundance, especially if we've been eating cooked foods our whole life. Our body's going to be really depleted. Like, if you look at, pretty much any person over 60, they're having osteoporosis, their teeth are breaking down, right? Those are alkaline mineral deficiencies,
I see.
right? You've just not been eating enough minerals your whole life. Your veins, like when we see spider veins, varicose
Mm,
veins, aneurysms, strokes, that's alkaline minerals. When you
interesting.
see prolapses, that's a lack of alkaline minerals. So the alkaline minerals give the strength and structure to every tissue in our body. So
Gotcha.
our hair, our skin, our bones, our organs, every single part of the body requires those alkaline minerals. So if we're neglecting to eat those really mineral rich salads, and instead we're just like going with the
Just fruit.
fruits, the fruit
Yeah,
does contain minerals, but you're never going to catch back up. You're never
gotcha.
going to get like back where what you were all missing. And if we look at frugivores out in nature, they're constantly grazing on leaves. Like,
Mm,
there's no frugivore in nature that neglects their greens, and
yeah.
they just eat greens
And
through
says
the whole
watermelon
day.
fast, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Could you imagine, like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna be picky out in the wild and
Yeah.
only eat this one
Oh
thing?
dear.
Yeah, it's totally unnatural. So yeah, variety. Make sure you're getting enough calories in. And then I don't know if we ever got back to like fasting, how thin.
Mm-mm.
Um, it's there's like no really good metric to tell, like, if you're thin, how far you should go. So like, really, if you're thin and you're fasting and you're doing it at home by yourself, limit it. Do a 7-day fast, do a 10-day fast. Don't do any further than that. Make sure you're drinking lots of water. Don't let your water slip. That's a big, huge thing.
Mm.
If you're doing, you want it, your goal should be at least a gallon of water a day when you're fasting.
Distilled.
If you find, yeah, distilled is the most ideal. If
Or
the
soft
cleanest you
water,
can
right?
get. So like spring water, filtered water, distilled is our ideal. Like, that's top marks for distilled. But not everybody has the ability to get distilled. So just whatever cleanest water you
Gotcha.
can get. So that might be like clean spring water, in your region, or it might be just like a good filtered water. But yeah, distilled is definitely the
King.
top of the choices. Yeah. But you want to make sure you're getting in a gallon a day, and you want to make sure you're getting,
For clarification, this is when you're fasting.
Yeah, when you're fasting. Well, I mean, when you're eating, you should be drinking about a gallon a day too.
Oh, really?
That's where, yeah, that's where we find most people are going to be.
Even when you're eating
top
fruits?
energy. Yep, even if you're
Oh,
eating 100%
jeez.
fruit. If you're
I'm doing
eating
it wrong.
if you're eating cooked foods, you want to actually even be drinking more than that.
Mm.
So, like, I had a friend who ran like a vegan restaurant, and so he was like mostly natural hygiene, but he still had to like taste his own food, and so he would kind of eat quite a bit of
Oh, that's a great excuse.
cooked. It's a great excuse to have edema and not feel great. But one of the things that he did like to kind of counter that was he would usually drink like between 2 and 3 gallons a day just to keep his body, hydrated well enough to counteract, because all that dry food is going to be sucking water out of the digestive tract in order to push it through. So when we eat our fruit, we're getting a little bit of water, but it's really minuscule.
I see.
Because if you think about it, any food moving through your digestive tract needs to retain about 80% water content in order to move through without causing constipation. So if you're eating something like a head of lettuce, which is like some of the most water-rich food, or like watermelon, that's like 90 to 95% water. So you're not getting 95% water though, you're getting 15% of that water to refuel your cells.
I see.
So if you're eating like, a pound of watermelon, for example, you're getting 15% of the water in that pound of watermelon to
I see what you're saying.
refill everything. But like breathing out overnight, you're breathing out like a quart of water through the night. So if you're only getting a few tablespoons of water with each fruit meal, you're never going to catch up to that loss. So we should definitely be drinking, and most ideally we should be drinking early in the morning. So like our ideal eating window is 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is when our digestive system turns on.
Okay.
So our body has 3 cycles. We have 12 noon to 8 p.m. is digestion, and then 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. is assimilation, and then 4 a.m. to noon is elimination. So that's why most of the time when we're healthy, we wake up at early in the morning, drink a little bit of water, and have a bowel movement first thing in the morning, because that's our elimination cycle. And so our digestion cycle starts at noon to 8. So ideally what we want to do is like drink 2 or 3 quarts of water between whenever we wake up and noon. This way we're getting most of our water in. That helps the elimination processes, and it helps to flush out whatever cellular debris the body produced the day before. And then, we can start eating, and then you can get your other 2 quarts in throughout the day or overnight. Like a lot of people will wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. You drink some water then too. But yeah, our goal should be roughly a gallon a day.
Gotcha.
When we're
when you're eating fruit.
Fasting, yeah, even eating 100% raw. But then when we're fasting, bare minimum a gallon. And sometimes when I fast, I'll be drinking 2 gallons a day. It just depends on how much your thirst demands.
Okay.
And sometimes when we fast, we'll get like nauseous. So you might have to like slow down with your drink. You might have to sip through a straw. But you want to, if you are feeling that nausea, you want to make sure that you're staying on top of the water, but just doing it slowly and gradually, because if you keep letting it slip, number one, you're going to get dehydrated. The more dehydrated you get, the more you're concentrating those acids, so the more uncomfortable you're going to get.
I love your saying, the solution to pollution is dilution.
Exactly. So, you want to be diluting with water when you're eating. You want to be diluting with when you're fasting. And so, at least 1 gallon. And if you start to slip below that 1 gallon for more than a day, then you want to think about breaking the fast, because we don't want you getting dehydrated.
Okay.
So if somebody's drinking like 4 liters, and then the next day they're drinking 3 liters, and then the next day they only get to 2.5, well, then you're breaking the fast next day. You have to, because otherwise you're going to be pushing your body to dehydration, and that's when you can cause
that's when you die.
So potentially, hopefully not, but usually what happens is that people end up in the hospital because they have like severe nausea, start vomiting, or have like just really extreme reactions. They get scared, and then they run to the hospital, and then like that's kind of the worst possible scenario.
Seriously.
Because you're as soon as you walk in the door of that hospital, like you're under their control, and they're gonna start. I mean, at the very least, they're gonna start with a IV saline drip, which is IV saline kills about 80,000 people a year, and they know this, and they still continue to use it.
You might as well just walk into a vampire dungeon.
Right. Exactly. So basically drink your water, stay hydrated, make sure you're eating enough calories. If you're doing, if you're not sure I mean, first of all, educate yourself on fasting before you start your first fast. You know, read Herbert Shelton's books on fasting at the bare minimum.
Yes.
You know, come over to our group and get like the life science course. There's 3 lessons on fasting in the life science course that you can read.
Link is
So
below.
educate yourself before. Yeah. And go for you know, and you know, like if you're not sure, if you're not confident with your knowledge base, you know, go to a fasting center. Don't do it alone, or you know, contact somebody. You know, there are, you know, fasting facilitators who will help you, like through Skype. If you can't afford to travel to a fasting center, you know, you can reach out to some of these centers and they'll help you, like over like an online Zoom session where you're checking in every day, and you know, they'll help you in that way. So definitely, you know, if you're not sure what you're doing, you know, or if you're on the thinner side and you want to fast, just, you know, there's no harm in just doing this, like, you know, a 7-day fast or a 10-day fast, and then, you know, do another 7-day fast next year, and then do another 7-day fast the year after. And, you know, you don't like, it's healing is not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? We don't have to fix everything this year. We just have to keep improving things, and the body's just going to keep improving.
Plus, there's no point in you know, taking a quick sprint and fasting if you're going to go back to those old foods, right? It just completely screw
Yeah.
yourself up. You're going to probably do more damage than good. So, how did you come to this? Because Shelton often would say, like, oh, if you're eating fruit, less water is okay. You know, just don't overdrink if you don't feel the need to thirst and all this kind of stuff. How did you come to no, actually, we're dehydrated. We need to be drinking more.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, originally there was like the natural hygiene proponents thought that frugivores did not drink water out in the wild. So that was where the idea originally came from, is because it was like, well, an absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
right. So basically, there had not been enough study of
The
what's
frugivores.
going on out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, and so they just basically hadn't come across any information of, oh yeah, they are eating or they are drinking, and so we had this kind of like lack of evidence, and so then we began to think like, well, maybe we're not really supposed to drink, and maybe it's just like an unnatural habit. But now we know, we've got lots more studies of frugivores, and now we know very conclusively that they are you know, drinking water out in nature. So that kind of negates that original thought process that Shelton was working with at that time.
Okay.
The other thing we've kind of learned, and I think, you know, maybe this is more of a modern problem where people have been eating, like since the 1980s, we've really moved away from food to like pure science projects.
Okay.
You know, like it's like these you know, Fruit Loops and these, like, you know, food colorings and crazy amounts of bread and dried fruits and stuff like that. Whereas kind of prior to that, a lot of people had home gardens. A lot of people had, you know, they were, you know, maybe they were eating like canned vegetables and fruits, but at least they were still eating majority canned vegetables and fruits. What we've seen over the last like 50 years is a skyrocketing of animal product consumption, you know, a tremendous drop off in fruit and vegetable consumption on a daily basis, and you know, this replacement of like whole foods with these like white bread, white flour, you know, Pop-Tarts and
Yeah.
sugary cereals and all of these like things that are like literally not even food, chemicals, and so, you know, I think that there is something like a bit more of an extreme situation going on with dehydration,
I see.
where the body becomes incapable of seeing thirst or incapable of feeling thirst.
Wow.
And you know, a lot of people also confuse their thirst with hunger. So a lot of people are eating all the time when
When they should be
thirsty.
drinking. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have this, and you know, and it's funny because I see it in my dogs too. Like I take in senior dogs from the shelters who have been on kibble their whole life, and kibble is extremely dehydrating.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've seen with the dogs is you can't force a dog to drink water, right? You can you can make sure they have clean water available, but they're, if they don't feel thirst, they're not going to drink.
But
And
in
so
like
what
a
I
severe
see,
case, can you like use a syringe and put water into them if you think that they need water?
generally you don't want to,
Okay.
because syringes, like, you can cause aspiration
Okay,
pneumonia
gotcha.
and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's generally you don't want to force it. But what we do is we just put them on fruit. So I'll, like, if I have a dog that's got like pretty severe disease conditions, I'll put them on 30, 60, or 90 days fruit. And what we
Really?
see is that, when we put them on the fruit for that long, then eventually they'll, all of a sudden their thirst will turn on, and they'll just be like drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking,
Got
and they'll
it.
just drink a ton of water. And then, so it's like they were thirsty the whole time, but
They
the
didn't
thirst
know.
signals were not getting through, and so they weren't drinking. And then all of a sudden it's like you get them hydrated enough with the fruit that the thirst signal starts to turn on,
Okay,
and then,
so
you
so
start
no
to drink
meat
it.
and bones during when they're ill.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, it was particularly if they have like serious disease conditions. If they
Okay.
just have like a mild disease condition, then we'll just limit the meat to like 1 day a week, or like once every 2 weeks. But like for things like cancer, seizures, vestibular disease, anything where it's like the dog is very uncomfortable, the dog is suffering, that we're gonna want to go full force on the fruit for an extended period. And sometimes it's longer than that. Like, I had one dog, Bean. He had seizures, dementia, was blind and deaf.
Holy moly.
So we put him on. He ended up being on fruit for I want to say like 18 months total. He had a few meat days here and there,
The
but
banana,
it was
papaya, watermelon?
yeah, well, all kinds of fruit, but yeah, banana was his favorite. He used to do the banana dance, and he thought like every banana that came into the house was his. He absolutely loved bananas. But yeah, papaya was another one of his favorites. We did lots of watermelon, but we do everything: grapes, pears, apples, cherries, blueberries, whatever we can, whatever we got. Usually, what I do is, because the bananas are very affordable, we do lots of banana meals, and then we kind of do like a clean out the fridge day, where it's like whatever fruit I didn't finish for
Oh,
the week,
gotcha. Perfect.
the dogs get.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. I always tell people, like, if you want to have a fruitarian diet, get a dog, because like all the fruit that's like bruised that you don't want to
Wow.
eat, all the fruit that like is overripe that you don't want to finish up, they'll love it, because they're like ground scavengers, so they actually need like the fruit that's a little bit more on the overripe side. So like the stuff that is like a little past its prime for us is actually ideal for
Perfect for
them.
them,
So it just works
exactly.
out so nicely.
Where do you get the meat
Um,
real quick? Like, how do you know it's good?
yeah. So we just get regular grocery store meat. I don't buy like the organic or grass fed or anything like that. It's just straight up
With bone,
chicken from the
though,
grocery
right?
store. Yeah, yeah. Typically we buy the whole chicken. That's kind of the most ideal option. And then I'll buy like the bags of chicken leg quarters. But what we do with the meat is we remove the skin, or not all of the skin, but we remove as much skin as we need to in order to get to the fat, and then we trim off most of the fat, because two reasons. One, the body uses fat to store toxins. So anything that, toxic wise going into the body is going to be in the fat rather than in the tissues.
Understood.
For the most part. I mean, some of it might be in the tissues, but for the most part, it's going to be in the fat. And then second is just in terms of how they eat naturally. Dogs in nature eat like very lean
Meats,
proteins.
exactly.
So, like the commercial meat is grain fed.
Fattened up, yeah.
They're fattened up, and so there's a lot more fat on them. So that's why, like, the commercial, like, even if you buy like a commercial raw food for your dog is going to get sick eventually, because it's just too much fat for them. So we trim off the fat, and then feed it, like you said, with the bone. So it's raw meat, and then bone intact. And then we'll do like a little bit of variety here and there with other meat types, like turkey and rabbit
Are you ever like a little bit
fish.
worried about like maybe the meat was sitting there for too long, or that's not too much of a problem?
If the meat is bad, it'll smell.
Okay,
So yeah, that's the nice thing about meat, is that you always know if meat has gone too far, because
gotcha.
it's a
It's
very strong, like, you won't miss the odor. It's
got it.
gross. Um, so
You,
yeah, but dogs have actually the ability to eat older meat
oh, okay.
anyway, because they, like in nature,
Scavengers.
what they would
Yeah.
do is, like, if they caught like a larger animal,
Yeah.
they would bury it, and then they'd come
Yeah.
back and eat it later. So, their stomach acid is very strong and it's
Gotcha.
able to kill all that bacteria on it. But yeah, ideally we want to be giving them just
Yep.
like fresh food.
Just a
Yeah.
story, but for a while there, I was in Saipan and I was living in this like kind of like remote farm, just like in the middle of nowhere there. And I had two dogs and two cats. And two cats I raised from like when they were children or like very young. And I would go
Yeah.
into the forest, Lord, and I would shoot wild rat and
Oh, wow.
wild bird for them after knowing what you said, because one, I don't really want
Yeah.
to go buy anything, and two, I'm thinking, man, if I want to keep these guys healthy, I have to do the real thing, I have to be their real mama, so here I
Yeah.
am doing like a fruitarian diet and I'm shooting animals and it's
Yeah.
thank God that's over,
But
but
hey, like, I mean, but does that not like tell you that like humans are just not meant to eat meat? Like how the
yeah.
fact that we actually like cringe at that. I mean, how like, and I mean, and I think it's such a great opportunity for people to see, like when you see a dog or a cat eating raw meat the
Yeah.
way that a carnivore or omnivore
Ugh.
eats, like it just makes it so obvious to you as a
Yes.
human that you are not meant to eat meat
Yes.
because, it's like they savor the blood. Like we cringe at blood and gore. And if you look at like when you see a bird flying past you, like your instinct is, oh look, that pretty bird. Oh, isn't that a cute bird? Your dog's instinct is crouch and pounce.
Yeah.
Like they don't even think about, like they're not sitting there like, oh, what a cute bird. They're like lunch,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so
You
it's
have to
really
actively
telling.
train them to be like, no, and they're like guilty, like.
Yeah.
But anyhow, okay, so I think this is a great segue back into humans. So water with the diet, right? Because that's obviously not good for the dog. But let's say for a human being is a good rule of thumb, like 30 minutes before your meal, maybe you can have some water, and then 2 hours after, something like that. What would you say?
Yeah, it's if you want to give about 10 to 15 minutes before a meal. So usually I drink like as I'm preparing my food.
Mm,
So like I'll fill up my water, I'll chug it down, and then I'll go like walk through the kitchen and decide what I'm gonna eat, and then
mm,
like maybe bring it, to my desk or the table or whatever. And by the time I finish gathering together whatever I'm gonna eat or prepping a salad or whatever, then the water's moved out of my stomach and I can start eating. So about 10 to 15 minutes for that. And then after a meal, most meals, like fruit meals, you want to wait 1 hour. The fruit will exit your stomach within 1 hour. So after an hour, you're good. But the nuts and seeds, they do take longer. So you want to give usually maybe like 2 to 3 hours
gotcha.
for the nuts and seeds before drinking. But yeah, so what we try to do is structure the day. So you're drinking first.
First, yeah.
Try to get in a lot of your water early. Then at noon you have your fruit meal, and then maybe at like 2 or 3 you have another fruit meal, and then at like 6 or 7 you have your salad meal.
Mm,
And your salad, you can either have your nuts and seeds or avocado with your salad, or you could have it before the salad or after the salad,
mm,
but you want to have them at the end of the day. This way you can get all your water in without having to worry about it. And then also, like, you want to get all your fruit in, which digests very quickly, before you have your salad
precisely.
and your
Nuts.
nut meal,
Yeah.
because those digest slower. So if you keep things in the order that they digest, then it works very kind of seamlessly.
Gotcha. Okay, and also, since you have these differing opinions with Shelton with water and stuff too, I just want to know more things that previous hygienists thought that now are disproved, and you think you have found otherwise. Just in case there's some.
So I wouldn't really say that I disagree with Shelton. I just think that there needed to be more clarity
Exactly.
around the amount, because Shelton and Fry both did advocate water, and obviously that when they did fasting, they did water fasting. So they both advocated for us drinking water,
Hmm.
but I think that prior to the 1980s, I think people were just more in tune to how much water they needed to drink,
Hmm.
and so people just naturally drank
I
more.
see.
And then I think what happened is, number one, you've got the powers that be, right? The experts telling us that we need to drink 8 ounce glasses of water a day. That's 64 ounces. That's nothing.
Mm,
That's like nothing. But that's where people have been just kind of programmed to drink. And so
gotcha.
people think, oh well, if I'm getting close to that, then I'm drinking enough water. And so they're just keeping themselves in this chronic state of dehydration. And so I think really nobody told me to drink a gallon when I was doing it. This is just what I've discovered
I see.
as like, if I drink less than a gallon, then the next day I'm tired. I don't have the same abundant energy. So what's happened is over time, I've just kind of said, okay, well, this is what worked for me. And then I talked to other people, and they had very similar experiences. And then we saw, okay, well, even outside of natural hygiene, there's like weight loss groups that are telling people drink a gallon a day. You'll lose weight, you'll feel better, you'll have energy, blah 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 blah. So you're seeing all of these other people have these experiences. And then what we did is we started in the support group telling people, because when we first started the support group, we just told people drink when you're thirsty. But then, some people were drinking a quart and some people were drinking a gallon. And,
I see.
people were not like really able to recognize their thirst, and they were eating more when they were thirsty. So then we said, okay, we're going to just set this like general guideline, set your goal for a gallon. And then we saw huge improvements in people's symptoms just through doing that. And so that's kind of where we got that gallon. And, it may vary person to person, but, it pretty safely, if
General
you're
rule of
drinking a
thumb.
gallon, you're gonna feel, you're gonna start to feel your own thirst and recognize that you're thirsty. And you're just gonna, help to rehydrate the body and, dilute some of those acids and improve your symptoms and everything like that. And then, as people go on, you might find eventually that you don't need quite as much, or you might find that you need more. But like I've found that mine like is pretty consistent. If I have, a few days in a row of not hitting my gallon, like I really feel it. I feel it in my energy. And that may be like, for me, I rely on my energy so much because I have so much to do. I have animals to take care of. I've got all these groups to run, consultations to do. So I'm like, most days I'm going from like 5 or 6 in the morning until 11, 12 midnight. And so like I need that energy. So that little dip, those kind of things, like I really notice in myself. And so I make note of those things and, make sure that I'm staying on top of those things to avoid having those dips. So, your water usage is going to vary person to person just based on your conditions. Like if you're indoors all day with the heat blaring, you're probably going to be more thirsty in the winter. In the spring, if it's raining out and there's tons of humidity in the air, you might not be quite as thirsty. But, if you're just kind of setting that goal for a gallon, like you're pretty much always going to be feeling pretty good. So.
Got it. But I kind of meant, other than water, was there anything that you found that was different from, the previous giants of hygiene?
So I can't really say like TC Fry or Shelton, but I like early on there were some of the early proponents where they varied on like the greens. So like some were like the original I think Carq, I think it is. He was much more heavily focused on fruit and nuts, and there was a much heavier focus on nuts. And then as Shelton kind of, so he was kind of like a predecessor to Shelton. And then as Shelton came along, they kind of discovered that like, really we should be eating more of like these mineral rich salad greens, and we should still be eating nuts. Nuts are still important, but maybe not quite so much of them. It becomes a little bit more optimal. And so there's like little things like that over the years. And, if you go back to like Arnold Ehret, like he was like one of the very, very early people in that. There's definitely some things within Ehret's work that Shelton kind of refined and things like that. But like I can't think of anything particularly like in terms of,
I think the water was the most apparent thing for me that seems to have kind of differed.
Yeah, and it's really not that Shelton or Fry was against drinking water. It's just that they never specified an exact amount.
And like you said, they probably drank more.
Yeah, you just drink more naturally. You just, when you're thirsty, you drink. And that was basically what Shelton and Fry both say in their book is drink when thirsty and drink until thirst is quenched. But, if your thirst sensors are turned off and you're thinking that you're hungry when you're actually thirsty, then you don't have the ability to actually just do that, to just drink when thirsty, because maybe you're just not recognizing your thirst. And that's what I found, is because I think we're just so chronically dehydrated. Because, even if you think about things like coffee is extremely dehydrating. Today, everybody drinks coffee.
Oh my gosh.
Across the board, across the world. But coffee was only really popularized in the 1950s.
Mm.
So like Shelton was like the 1940s, 1950s. Like, so coffee was only just getting started
Yeah.
at that time. Right. So, by TC Fry's time, like, it was more kind of prevalent. Soft drinks, sodas, coffee, tea was definitely more prevalent by his time. But I just don't think that there was quite the level of extreme dehydration that we're seeing today, just because people are eating all this dry food, drinking the coffee, drinking the energy drinks, drinking the soda, all these things that dehydrate them, drinking the alcohol. And so people are just so much more chronically dehydrated than I think that people were
In those
Shelton's time. And
times.
so we just need more instruction, basically.
Yes.
People just need to
We're more
just
out of
have it
tune with
a
the
little bit
signals of
more.
our body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it just takes a while. And the thing is, if somebody was kind of just eating fruit long term, they probably eventually would hit a point where they feel more thirst and maybe, start naturally kind of increasing that. But most people are suffering. And so we want to get them out of suffering as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
One of the things that we can do is give the body more water so it can
Yeah.
flush out more waste more quickly, because the body's going to process that and get the waste out. And that's, solution to pollution is dilution. The best scrubber of the body is the water.
Yeah.
Right? The body can put all that stuff into the water. So, the more water we're putting in, the more the faster the body can heal.
Okay, and greens. So how do you distinguish which greens are good and which greens are bad? It's just you kind of go by the bitterness. Less bitter is better, kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah. So we were gifted these taste buds that are there to protect us from poisons and non-ideal foods. And so anything that is bitter, spicy, excessively salty, sour, like fermented.
So
hot
not
food,
spicy
sour.
peppers are fine, right?
Right, yeah. So you can have not spicy, like sweet peppers are great for you, but the spicy peppers, that's the body warning you that there's a poison in them. So with the greens, generally things like lettuces, like romaine, iceberg, green leaf, red leaf, butter leaf, those are all very sweet. So those are all great. And then you have like the darker greens, like things like kale and collards and mustard greens and all of that. Some of those we can eat in their young form and they're like baby leaves, and some of them are not ideal. So like mustard greens, they're spicy. Arugula, that's spicy. Dandelion greens, that's spicy. So that's all our body warning us, our taste buds warning us that this is a poisonous substance. So we want to stay away from those, any of those spicy greens, anything that burns the tongue, anything that has that bitter taste.
Lettuce is sometimes a little bit bitter. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, then that's your taste buds warning you. Like,
Okay.
What happens is when lettuce is grown, if it's put under stress, it starts to bolt, and then once it bolts, then it becomes bitter. And so if the lettuce is bitter, then you probably just want to toss it on the compost pile and try to get some fresher lettuce. But like things like kale and collard greens, the baby leaves, the smaller the leaves, they're very sweet.
Yeah.
And so they're good for us to eat when they're in the smaller form. But then as they get larger, so like when you go to the grocery store and you get like those big bunches of the kale, like it's very like, it's not like enjoyable to chew, and it's got that like bitter flavor.
Yeah,
to
that's
it.
for the goat.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really what it is it's like the life cycle of the plant. So like fruit, when we pick fruit, it doesn't injure the tree in any way, right?
Yes.
The fruit it releases freely for us to take it, and the tree continues growing. But the benefit is we take the fruit and then we deposit the seeds in our bowel movements in like a fertile medium so a new tree can grow. So we're like working symbiotically with the tree. With lettuces and plants like that, there's a period where when we're eating the leaves, it's attracting us to the plant, and then we help to spread the seeds. So as like we or like other herbivores are moving through the plants, we're eating the kind of mid-sized leaves that are sweet and tasty. And by doing so, we're helping to kind of shake loose the seeds and maybe catch some of them on our fur, and we transport them and move them out further places. But the plant doesn't want to be eaten at certain stages.
Gotcha.
So sprouts, like when we first sprout,
Yeah.
those sprouts are bitter, right? Because they want the plant to grow large enough. And then you get like kind of the mid-range leaves, and those are nice and sweet because the plant can sacrifice some of those to keep you coming back. So, and if you watch like animals in the wild, you always see that they kind of like nibble on a little bit on this plant and then this one and then this one. And they're
They're
not like just
finding.
devouring the whole plant, right? So they're like kind of just moving through, nibbling on the leaves, but the plant is able to keep growing. And then eventually the leaves get to a certain point, and then the temperature, maybe like summertime, the plant bolts and it starts to send up its seeds. And then at that point, the plant wants to concentrate all of its energy into creating the seeds, so it doesn't want you eating the leaves
So
anymore.
it gets
So now the
bitter.
leaves are bitter.
Huh.
Yeah. So
Fascinating.
it's kind of cool things that you learn when you become a gardener as a fruitarian. You
Yeah,
start to see these things through nature, and it's really amazing.
it really is.
Everything's like intelligent. Everything's there for us, for our benefit, and it like works. And we have these intelligent taste buds that protect us from these things. And we've just over the years just been kind of socially conditioned to ignore our inbuilt warning signals.
Exactly.
And so we glorify eating spicy peppers and
Oh
like
my
have like
gosh.
chili
In
cook-offs
Korea,
and
that's such a fad. It's crazy.
yeah.
But anyhow, no,
It's
that's exactly right. That's why I ended up here, Lauren, because like everything else doesn't make sense on all levels, but
mhm.
natural hygiene really makes sense on all dimensions, on all levels. Every way you look at it, it just aligns with each other. So, I mean, there's no argument. What about so for someone who works out and wants to really build muscle, what would you put them on?
Mhm. So biggest thing is that you need calories, so energy. Like when you look at bodybuilders, they're always focused on like protein, protein, protein. But then they have like the shortest lifespan of pretty
They
much
screw their
anybody.
kidneys. Yeah.
Yeah, kidneys and heart disease, right? It's like that's like a given if you're bodybuilder, because they're just overdoing the protein. That's all it is. It's just an excess of protein. So the body requires very little protein to build muscle, but what we need most is calories. We
Okay.
need sugar because
Gotcha.
we need the energy to actually use the muscles to bring them to failure to build them up. So the actual muscle building process is 100% the weight that you're lifting and
Okay.
the repetitions and all of that. So it's the strength training that actually builds the muscles. But if your body is very acidic because you're overeating on proteins, then it's going to be a lot less efficient at creating muscle.
Mm.
So when you're feeding your body properly of your natural foods, your body's very alkaline. It's got lots of minerals for strength and structure. And then what the other thing that you'll kind of see with like natural, people who are eating the natural diet and bodybuilding versus people like Joe Rogan who are
Yeah,
eating
Joe
this animal
Rogan.
protein, right? Well, like if you look at Joe Rogan, like his head is like
Oh
bulging
my
out,
gosh.
right? He has so much edema in
Yeah.
his body,
He's
like
just like
he's
fully
so dehydrated.
inflamed. Oh, you should be taking
Yeah,
this supplement. Oh, I take this. I do this. It's just like,
yeah. It's terrible. But his muscles are not really as big as they appear. They're just full of water
I see.
because his body's trying to dilute all those acids. So that's why he has those swollen muscles, and
Yeah, I
the body
noticed
is
that.
like kind of
Like a
red.
turkey.
Like if you look at like there's the guy on Instagram called the Liver King, and
Yeah.
recently he got caught like doing steroids and all of that, but he like promotes eating like all of this organ meat, and like he has these like weird videos where his like family look like they're in like a hostage situation and they're all just eating like testicles and things like that, and it just looks like, and he's like, yeah, we're all enjoying ourselves, and they look absolutely like deer in headlights,
Horrified.
terrified but also miserable. But like his skin is like bright red, and you're like, just you look at this person and you're like, how are you even alive? Like it's so like their body is so toxic. But that's kind of like the visual we have in our heads when we think of like, I'm gonna work out in the gym, I'm gonna get like like they literally call it swole,
Swole.
right? You get
Yeah.
swole, right? It's like,
Swollen.
yeah, you're swollen, you're literally swollen with edema because your body is so sick. So what we see with when we're eating the natural diet is that we get like lean muscles, super strong.
Mm.
Like for me, I just like grab like the 40-pound banana cases and just like toss them around like they're absolutely nothing, and I'm like 5'2", like 100 pounds, right? So it's like
You're like an ant.
like I can yeah, like I can like we were just rebuilding the dam at my dad's property, and we're carrying like 70-pound bags of cement from it's like a 3-acre property, so you're walking like half a mile just like carrying these bags of cement. It's just like nothing. right? But like 20 years ago when I was, just coming out of high school and probably like, what most people consider like peak fitness.
Yeah.
I couldn't lift 70 pounds. I could probably barely lift 20 pounds.
Exactly.
Because because my body was.
I mean,
just
look
so
at a
weak.
gorilla, how jacked that thing is.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and what do I always tell people? Like if you want to build muscle, eat bananas, lots and lots and lots of bananas, because that's going to give you your calories, good calorie density, and your salads. Like have a salad every single night. Get your greens in because you need that vitamin K2 to build muscle. So leafy greens is where we get our vitamin K2.
Got it.
So yeah, like when I was like mountain biking a ton, I was just literally just eating monetarily wise, it was just the most cost effective thing I could eat. So I was eating tons of bananas and then just a big salad every night. And I just put on muscle like crazy.
Oh,
and I
wow.
was like, what is happening? And because I had always been like very non-athletic. Like I always tried to be athletic. Like I ran track and I did swimming, but I always felt like my body couldn't do what I wanted it to do. And then through my 20s I was just very like sedentary, really didn't like have any energy to do anything, and really struggled. Like if I went to the gym, it was like I would always get nauseous when I would work out and stuff like that because my body was so acidic that it's like creating nausea just through the added acids of moving your muscles.
Yeah.
And then I was about like 2 years in on raw food, and here I am like out like riding my mountain bike up like for 30 miles without getting winded.
Yeah.
And it's just like this massive change. But yeah, so I was eating like just bananas and salads and just like putting on muscle like crazy, and just like my fitness levels were just going through the roof.
Gotcha. So bananas and salads. And would you say like sprouts? Because I know like they buff up horses with alfalfa, right? Or something like that?
So I'm not a big fan of sprouts because we were just saying before about the bitterness of them.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a few sprouts that are not too bitter.
Which ones?
Alfalfa might be one of them. I'm not sure.
Okay,
It's been
okay.
such a long time since
And
I've
when
had any.
you eat the sprouts, can you eat like the bean part? You know what I'm talking about? Or
Yeah, like if you're sprouting, say like a chickpea
yeah,
or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah. So, but then again, like chickpeas are not really an ideal food for us.
Yeah,
Like,
they
they're
feel
kind of
so
starchy.
heavy.
Yeah, they're very hard for us to digest. So, yeah, I generally, like sprouts are meant to grow into plants. And
Yeah.
then we're meant to eat the plants when they're grown up.
Okay.
And so, like, like some people do enjoy them. And like, TC Fry includes sprouts as part of the natural hygiene diet. It's like nutrient density versus the toxicity. So like some foods are, may contain some toxins, like, kale might contain some toxins, but it also is very mineral rich. So,
I see.
there's like a little
A
bit
trade-off.
of a trade-off.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but like personally, I used to eat sprouts quite a bit when I first transitioned. And at this point now, I'm just like, they don't taste good to me. They don't, it's not like a pleasant experience for me.
Yeah,
They're
I've never
way
really
too
gravitated towards
spicy.
them.
Yeah, and so like I know some people do, like, and especially if you live in an area where like maybe your fruit selection in the winter is kind of
Minimal.
limited, or
Yeah.
then you might sprout as just to kind of give you something for variety.
Gotcha.
So it's not the worst thing, but like I don't think that we should really be eating it on
Okay.
a regular basis.
And speaking of red, my feet and hands are really yellow. What's wrong with me, Lauren?
So yellow tinge to our skin is it's bilirubin.
Okay.
So it's just basically when the red blood cells break down, they will produce a little bit of this bilirubin, which is like the yellow tinge. And so like sometimes you see it like when babies are first born, a lot of times
Yeah.
they have like jaundice,
Okay.
right? And that's just like a more kind of extreme version of that. But if you get out in the sunshine, that actually breaks the bilirubin down in the skin. So,
But when I was in Saipan, I was always in the sun, and it wouldn't work. And when I searched on the internet, what I found was too much papaya, pumpkin, and all this like.
Oh yeah, that is possible.
You think so?
Mean, like if we take in like we've seen with people who juice carrots, like there was a couple cases of people who like were trying to cure their cancer by just making carrot juice. And they would turn orange because it's so much beta carotene.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're eating like
Okay.
a lot of like orange fruits, then yeah, you
But
could
I don't feel
potentially get a little
bad,
bit of
but
that.
people always look at my hands and they're like, yeah, what, why is it so yellow?
Yeah,
And I'm just like, I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, so it could be one either one. I would say like yeah, if you're generally eating like a fruitarian diet for like a long time, it's probably not a lot of acidity in the body. Like
Yeah.
the jaundice is going to be like acidity in the body. So yeah, it's probably more likely that you've just been overdoing some of those more orange fruits,
Gotcha.
and so maybe you just need to switch it up a little bit,
Got
go to
it.
some
Okay,
some
well,
like
I think
apples
we
or
have to
something.
wrap it up soon, right? We're approaching 2 hours. But,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll go into a really controversial one for our last topic. This thing, right? The
Mhm.
whole that
Mhm. Mhm.
fiasco. How do we get that thing out? Because I'm looking into like graphene and all this, and I have some friends that are like, what do we do? And I'm just like, I'm guessing fast. I don't know. What would you
Yeah.
say?
Well, and that takes us full circle right back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which
Mm,
is, the body takes all action.
mm,
So we don't need to do anything special in order to get things out, because literally from the moment a poison enters the body, and that's really what it is, you're just injecting a poison through the skin barrier. But the moment a poison enters the body is immediately taking action.
yeah.
Now, you might have damage, like, right? So, like, sometimes we'll have, like, a child gets an injection and then they have encephalitis, right? The brain starts to swell from inflammation because it's crossed the blood-brain barrier. So in that case, the inflammation is the healing process. So
Mm,
the encephalitis is actually the body trying to heal the brain. But what we want to do is just lift as much burden off the body so that the body can concentrate all of its effort onto removing those injuries. So we want to make sure that we're eating, fueling our body properly, because even outside of that, like, yeah, if you try to travel or something, you might be forced to get one of those injections, or if you are in the military, maybe, or your
so
job
you
might
wouldn't worry too
require this.
much? Like you would take it?
I would try to avoid it at all
Yeah, like
costs,
I'm like
but
so scared of those things.
right, but yeah, like I would never volunteer. Like, I mean, literally, like, over my dead body, right?
Yeah,
Like, I'm not gonna let anybody, put that into me. But like, there are people who have, maybe you weren't educated before that, or you went, you had to do it for whatever XYZ reason. Um, the best thing we can do at that moment would be to fast right after.
gotcha.
So, if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, and it's not even just that, but like also, maybe we get exposed to the disinfectant being sprayed, or,
Exactly.
just anything, any environmental poison where it's out of our control. What we want to do is control the things that are in our control.
Mm,
So, number one, making sure that we're eating properly all the way along through our lives, so that when our body is injured in this way, it can heal very quickly.
exactly.
Because really, this is an injury, right? This is an injury and a poison going into your body. And so it's the same as, like, if you break your bone, if you cut you skin your knee, the more energy we can give to the body to clear it up, the faster the body can get that clear. And so the body has certain, like, defensive mechanisms. So, like, if like with the graphene, for example, any unusable material, the body is either going to eliminate it immediately,
Mm,
right? So it's going to ramp up your expulsion symptoms and try to get it out right away. So you might get like a flu, or, fever or something like that for several days. You'll feel really tired. That's your body working on it right there. That's your body getting it out. If the body is not able to eliminate it, because maybe you haven't been eating well, your body doesn't have the vitality, maybe you've been on drugs, or taking the usual standard American course of
yeah.
food and drug. And so your body doesn't have that ability to eliminate it,
Mm,
then the body's going to encapsulate it. So the body creates like cysts and tumors and all
mm,
these little, like, pockets.
yeah.
And so it'll take that material that's injuring the body, and it'll create like a little shell around it. And then when we then give the body more vitality, it will then remove that tumor,
Got it.
right? So the body's always taking action against those things, but what we can do is we can make sure that our body is in the best condition, so it has the most energy available
Exactly.
and clear pathways, right? Like, hydration is so important, because our lymphatic system is the sewer system of the body. If your sewer system's all clogged up because you've been eating junk food and drinking, you know, alcohol and dehydrating your body with coffee and all of that, then your lymph system is going to be all thick and gluey and not, you know, not flowing freely. And so all the elimination of everything toxic that comes into the body is going to be all clogged up. But if we're eating fresh fruits and salads and the body is super hydrated and our bowels are running perfectly and everything's clear and all our pathways are clear, then whatever goes in,
It's gonna
the
come right
body's
back
going
out.
to be able to have lots of energy to get it out and clear pathways to get it out.
Got
So
it.
that's what we can do. We can't control everything in this world. There's always going to be something toxic that you're going to be exposed to, but what we can control is, are our pathways clean? Is our body hydrated enough to get all this junk out? And when the body starts to do that, are we resting, right? So, you know, the first sign of detox is always fatigue.
Mm.
And a lot of times we're in this culture of like, we've got to always be going, producing. So we get kind of stuck in that mindset of like, go, go, go. What we really need to do is
Rest.
hear and listen to our body when it's fatigued and take that time to rest and give the body the rest when it asks for it.
Amen. Well, Lauren, that was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate what you do for the community. Like you are like a shining light in this darkness, and you know, yeah. I mean, I aspire to be like you, to be quite frank. So, yeah, I don't know how else to end it. I really hope we can do more shows like this because I really like it when you express, because the writing you can only see so much, you know. But when you
Yeah, yeah.
when you're talking, I just like that a lot more. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to do more if people have questions and want to, you know, talk about different subjects. Always happy to, you know, get out there and just, you know, the more we talk about it, the more people we can help. So, you know,
Got
it's
it.
a great opportunity. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh
It's such
yeah.
a great opportunity to be able to talk to the community and just, you know, get this information out. And like I said, it's like, you know, I can write so much, but like sometimes things, you know, some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners. So, you know, we can reach different people in different ways. And, you know, maybe I can explain something in a different way that reaches somebody. You know, I know there's sometimes where I've read 3 or 4 different books telling me the same thing, but until I read one of them that explained it in a way that I could understand,
Mm,
it just didn't sink in. So, you know, if we can talk about it instead of writing about it, then sometimes we can express things in different ways. So.
precisely. Well, I'm not going to hold you any longer. Please go check out the site. Terrain Model refutes germ theory, and you know, check Lauren out. Give her lots of love, and that's about it. Alrighty, Lauren. Take care.